legislature would look like this. I would personally get rid of term limits. I'd make it 4 years in the House, 4 years in the Senate, voting for them every other year or every 2 years, you know, so that you got the Senate in and 2 years later you vote for the House, and no term limits. So you'd have some institutional knowledge as you go through. I'd reduce the pay to maybe $35,000. I would give them one full-timer. When we were not in session, I would tell my staffers, I'd have two, a front desker who would take the phone calls and a back desker who would work with me with legislation. I want somebody in here at all times when I'm not here to answer the phone to do constituent service, and if you don't know how to answer the question, you call me. Well, that's all they need. So if you had a part-time legislature, they don't need two, they only need one. So I think the average, I have to look at it here, but the average full-time legislature has something like 1,380 people working in that legislature. You don't need that many. You don't even need anywhere close to that, because you have a legislative service bureau who writes up the bills, and you have people working in photography. And by the way, when your people come out after they voted terrible, like on the road tax, every one of those people would go into a room and they'd get a camera in front of them and they'd start asking them questions and tell them how to answer. And if they didn't answer right, they'd let the guy look at that video and say, here's where you screwed up, you should have said this, you don't really want to answer that question, you want to answer it this way, so when they come to talk to you, they can blow smoke. That's what they do.
Wow.
That's exactly what they do. So they're trained to tell you what you want to hear.
And we're paying for that?
And you're paying for that. Absolutely true. So those are some of the things. So I'd love to see a part-time legislature where they meet maybe 3 months a year, and I'd really like to see this. I'd like to see somebody meeting on Friday night, all day Saturday, half a day Sunday, go home for a weekend. You can still do a lot of your work there, so you or anybody here could hold that job. So you'd have to have a regular job, and this would just be a part-time job. And do that for 90 days, and if the governor needed more, he could ask for an extra 30 days to be in session. That's what I'd like to see, because the longer they are there, the more laws they will make. Okay, I'm going to go as quick as I can here so you can get up and on.
Take your time.
For example, highest paid in the nation, we're the 4th highest paid in the nation. They get roughly $72,000 a year. By the way, we were getting almost $80,000 a year. We cut our pay by 10%. So I asked all the chairmen of their individual departments, whether it's transportation, department, community health, I wanted everybody to take just a 5% pay cut. I couldn't get that passed. Governor Snyder came in and gave them all huge pay raises. I said, we all took pay cuts. Everybody, and that's way back in what, 2010? Everybody's losing their jobs and nobody's getting pay rates. They all got huge pay increases. Why? I'm asking, and all of them were making well over $100,000. So they get $72,000 a year now. They get roughly about $11,000 a year expense money. And then they get benefits on top of that, a 401k, which is matched at, I think, 20%, pretty high. And then they get that $75 or $80 a day they can deduct from their income tax. So it's a good gig for those people. Give you an example of Texas. It has a population of 2.5 times the size of Michigan. It meets a maximum of 140 days. Their salary is $7,200 a year. Plus they make $150 a day every day that they're in session, and most of them hold real jobs. Each senator in Texas represents 868,000 people. In Michigan, our senators represent 261,000 people. In Florida, twice the population of Michigan, they meet 60 consecutive days. They earn $29,697 per year. In Virginia, they meet 60 days a year, and then the next year they only meet 30 days. They earn $18,000 a year. They meet every other year. Texas meets every other year. Texas is 2.5 times the size of Michigan. So you can see that bigger states with bigger budgets have done it. But they're going to say, oh, they can't. Every one of those staffers in Lansing and every lobbyist will be against part-time legislature. That's a reason you should be for it. So what do we need from you? We need volunteers to go door to door to get signatures. We need money. The mistake we made last time, we tried to get the Tea Party and other groups involved where they would just do it on their own. And we found that they didn't get enough signatures. We had to stop it halfway through because we could never get our signatures we needed. So we need the volunteers, plus we need the money so that we can pay people $1 or $2 a signature. If we get this understandable, more accountable, more accessible government, she defends the U.S. Constitution and advocates for a child's right to life, a citizen's right to bear arms, and a business owner's freedom from excessive taxation and regulation. Catherine's a proud wife and a mother of 4, a homeschooler parent, a small business owner, an attorney, a mediator, a foster care mentor, and a community volunteer. That's the kind of lady you want working for. So, with that being said, what we'll do here is, if some people have to leave here soon, where's Norm? Do you want me to ask questions now, or do you want to give you a little spiel?
Yeah, we're going to take a few questions while folks are still here yet, and then we'll move on.
Okay, but I got to make one more thing for my spiel. I looked up Michigan's rating for legislature. Everyone I'm going to mention is an F, is what they gave our legislature. Public access to information, F. Political financing, F. Executive accountability, F. Legislature accountability, F. Judicial accountability, F. State civil service management, F. Procurement, that doesn't surprise me, F. Lobbying disclosure, F. Ethics enforcement agencies, F. State pension fund, F. By the way, you're hearing now that the United States has a $20 billion, is it a deficit? Is that what it is?
Trillion? Trillion?
What is it? 20 trillion.
Trillion.
Okay, how much unfunded mandates besides that do we have in the federal government? Anybody know? It's about $220 trillion. Add the 220 to the 20 is 240. We have 315 million people in the United States. Divide that, every man, woman, and child sitting in these seats, in the day they're born, owe the government almost $700,000. That is unsustainable. So how has Obama done it? He's done everything that my friend 3-star General Boykin has told me, and my friend Kamal Salim, former Muslim Brotherhood terrorist, now Christian, that goes around the nation speaking against Islam. He said he has ruined us fiscally, spending too much, more than any other president, all the presidents combined, morally, by pushing homosexuality down our throat, fiscally, morally, constitutionally, by executive orders, and militarily, because we got the smallest military we've had since prior to World War II. So he's done exactly, he said, what we wanted done. In the state of Michigan, they'll tell you we have a balanced budget. It's not really balanced, because we have unfunded mandates for our state employees that are retiring and their health care. And that equals about what our budget is. It's close to $50 to $56 billion. So when they tell you, oh, we have a balanced budget, not really. It's not really balanced. It's all smoke and mirrors. And then their whole plan is, well, we'll get in and do our thing, and we'll get out, and somebody else will be dealing with the problem. Same thing Obama's doing right now.
I think we need to put them all on Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah. So that's just some of the stats I wanted to give to you. And some of the things that I worked on very, very diligently to try to get passed. I wanted to get E-Verify passed in the state of Michigan. Arizona passed E-Verify. E-Verify is a free homeland security system that basically says when you hire Dave Ageman, no matter who you hire, you got to get their name, you got to get their social security number. And then all you got to do when you hire them is you hit enter on your computer, and it zips over to Washington and cross-checks 450 million documents. Does that name match the social security number? Are they overextended on a green card or a worker permit? And it comes back in 3 to 5 seconds. It says confirmed or not confirmed. If this is not confirmed, you're looking at an illegal. Don't hire them. Arizona passed that law, and in 1 month, about 40,000 people left Arizona, came to states like Michigan, because we don't have that law. But we have about 2,200 businesses in the state of Michigan that are using that E-Verify. Costco is one of them, for example. They'll go up, and illegal will walk into Costco and say, we use E-Verify. He'll turn right around and walk out the door, because he knows he's not going to get hired. So that's something I worked on. The other issue I worked on, I've been on TCT, Christian Broadcasting Network, and Aramaic Broadcasting Network. That reaches 23 million people in the United States, and it goes worldwide into the Middle East, debating imams on Islam. I'm going to tell you, people are ignorant of what Islam is. An American Law for American Courts bill I put in, who Representative Hooker has it now. By the way, I could not get that passed in our own legislature with Republicans in the majority, because they didn't understand what Islam was. All that bill said to a lawyer like her, do not use foreign law in a court of law if it causes your U.S. citizen to lose their constitutional rights. So what do we have? We've had over 50 cases, I think it's up to 75 now, where a lower court judge has used Sharia law or a foreign law in a court of law, and they have lost their constitutional rights. And a lot of those are are in, when they're dealing with kids. Because according to a Muslim, if I say I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, and just say it 3 times, you're divorced. Well, then you talk about who's going to get the kids. Well, it always goes with the male. And by the way, a woman is only worth half of what a male is. And a man can have 4 wives. And if your daughter marries an infidel, it's your job to kill that daughter. I mean, those are the things most people don't know that's in that. So that's what I tried to pass. And there's a lot more I can talk about, but I'm going to give it to Norm so he can come up here and give his little spiel in. And then we'll answer questions. Any kind of question you have, we'll be happy to answer that when we're all done. So, the man with the black sweater.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave. I'm going to just go into some detail here. First of all, my wife is worth more than I am, and I'm not going to argue that. Michigan. I was born in 1961, probably 2 years prior to the switchover to the full-time legislature. I actually witnessed what Michigan was prior. You could actually go into the private sector. I live in a little town south here in Allegan County called Pullman. Pullman had Pullman Industries. It was a major production operation for Chrysler. And Chrysler used it extravagantly to build a lot of its products. Around 63, the state passes the new full-time legislature. A lot of things went on about that. People's lives were threatened, according to historical books. There was a lot of dismay over it. George Romney, Mitt Romney's father, says, we gotta have it. But what we don't know then, and what we know now, is that we skewed into a time tangent, much like you see on Back to the Future, the movie Back to the Future, where Doc says we skew into this time tangent. And we wind up in a world of today, where we have a legislature that basically has been consolidated around a governor, a gubernatorial office, so that it can constrain it, contain it, and as Jennifer Granholm saw and implement it, lock it in place until the governor gets what they want. What actually happened in 1963? We, for the most part, lost our influence. Now, some would actually ask yourselves, do we live in a democracy? We don't live in a democracy. We live in a representative republic.
And they're not even doing that, please.
Correct. The representative republic is my representative in my stead. The governor in 1963 knew that. And what is the House or that portion of government? It is the purse. It's us. It's our wallets. When they took on the legislature and said, let's have a full-time legislature, they took our wallets, our futures, our livelihoods, everything we had intended to save up, and subjected it to future taxation through that move. By consolidating this representative government here around Lansing, we now have the equivalent of basically an 800-pound gorilla. That's a term you all heard. But that 800-pound gorilla is going to take one heck of a punch to knock it back into place and once again recorrect time. The problem is when George Romney created this mess, he basically took it in such a manner by a simple act of the legislature, and you've heard Dave here tonight talk about how I'll give you 10,000, I'll give you 10,000, give me what I want. That's how easy it went. For us to change that, it's going to take a statewide referendum to make that correct it. The problem is that takes money.